Okay. Yep, we are live. All right. Good evening, everybody. This is Patrick from the Poison Pen Bookstore in Scottsdale, Arizona. And as always, it's a real treat to have my friend Eli Cranor here talking with me. We're going to be discussing his brand new book, and all I have is the ARC. But I think you signed a batch of books for us in New York, so we should be getting those really soon. But the new book, Mississippi Blue 42, just a terrific book. A little bit of a change in tone for you,
Yeah.
uh, but there's so much to get into. Anyway, it's great to see you, Eli.
Dude, so glad to be here. That's what we were just saying. I think it's been every book and always enjoy these chats above all the others, Patrick, because you've read the books and you've got great thoughts. And that's not always the case, when you get on these. Just to have somebody who's read the book always means a lot.
Yeah, well, you got to quit publishing in the summertime. Um, if you want to publish in like a February, maybe that'd be perfect Arizona time to get out here, or like maybe November.
Dude,
Uh,
well, I have a friend, and she wrote a book called The Death of the American Worker. She's an Arkansas girl. Just this book came out last year, like right around when Broiler did. And anyway, she's doing a fellowship now, like out in Arizona. Um, and I was joking. We talked the other day, and I was making a joke about the heat because we've had like days of like 99, 100, and like in Arkansas, it's like
oh, that
100% humidity, like just take a shower every time you go to the truck. Um, and I was like, so how's it compare? Like you're an Arkansas girl, like and what's it like? And she was just like, Eli, it's a whole nother thing. Like in Arizona, she's like, like you can't even park your car on the street, like your tires might explode. And I don't know, she was really saying that it was way hotter
it's a
than what she
different
had
kind.
expected.
It's totally different. It's like, would you rather be flash fried or like
Yeah.
broiled in your own, I think I would
Mhm.
rather be out
Yeah.
here. I couldn't handle that humidity.
Dude, it's so right. I mean, and we have been like, I mean, we have Bermuda grass and like even Bermuda grass, which is really, really hardy, like it's just fried. Like it's so if the Bermuda grass can't take it, I don't know. I don't know that people should.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right on the water too. I remember last time you showed me a picture of your spread there. It
Yeah.
looked really idyllic.
Well, this is actually the strangest thing. So we're on a reservoir of the Arkansas River. Um, and so the reason to create a big power plant, a nuclear power plant, like in 1970.
Yeah, you're
Well, as of today, the day and now,
you're cutting out on me a little bit.
am I back?
Yeah, you're
Is it
back now.
okay? Well, like a piece of the lock, it won't close. So the lake is like losing, I don't know how many, it's like they posted on the news like certain millions of gallons like
Oh
per
my,
minute. So
oh,
everybody's like trying to pull their boats out and like, so anyway, we'll see if the lake holds up.
damn. Um, well, where's a good place to kind of dig into this book? I must admit, it's about the wild and woolly world of college football today. As well, the book is set in 1914, 2014, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that there's been a world of difference in that small amount of time, and some of my illusions were kind of shattered in a way, you know.
Yeah.
Um, Talk a little, and the first book, of course, Don't Know Tough, was all about high school football as the background. So we're expecting your pro football novel at some point down the road, but
Swedish football, Swedish professional American football. Yeah.
yeah, talk a little bit about the background for this book.
Yeah, man. So where this book also this was so I wrote three really crappy manuscripts. back when I was first trying to write, and the fourth manuscript I finished was Don't Know Tough. Um, right after I finished that book, the next thing I wrote was this manuscript called Blood Orange Fall, which, and this would have been in about 2014, 2015. There was this really great SB Nation article that came out called Meet the Bagman. And it was all about really like SEC football, like, Auburn, Alabama, Ole Miss, Georgia, Florida, like places where football is just, it is. It's a multi-million dollar, these days, multi-billion dollar industry. And it was then. And the idea that like we were going to recruit players like because of how nice our weight room was, or and not like actually give like that this capitalistic game was going to happen, and that they weren't getting paid of some sort was just a pipe dream, like. And so this article came out about that this guy he had interviewed a ton of these guys that were called bagmen, and it was hilarious, and it really was like all, I mean, and basically what he described them as were just diehard fans who like had enough money, and this was a great quote. He said like they just wanted to drop down a tax bracket. So like they would give anywhere from 500 to $50,000, of their own money to these players. And so I was just absolute. I mean, I played college football in Florida Atlantic briefly for 1 year under Howard Schnellenberger. And Coach Schnellenberger like started the U, so there was this, that was as close as I got to that world. Came back, played in Division II, but was always around, guys and teams. And but this was a world that was outside my mind. And then the thing that really made it all click over in terms of how to make it, because like that first novel I wrote, I don't even know what it was. I mean, I didn't even know Don't Know Tough at the time was like a crime novel. Like
Mm.
I wasn't, I wasn't writing, I wasn't being published. I wasn't. So what really ended up locking this book into place was the idea of it being like a federal investigation, like the idea of it being like, what would that look like if the FBI really sunk teeth into college football. And they did it with college basketball. There was that the biggest things that I got from that case was when it all washed out, the only people who were really impacted the most by it were the players. Like a couple of assistants were fired, but there were any player that was like in that investigation basically got blackballed. And that was the thing, in terms of like a social issue to me that I really wanted to highlight in this kind of satirical, kind of dark humor. Like you mentioned, the tone of this book being different. I felt like I had to do that, and I really wanted to try that because this is a game. Like it's just a game that people are so fanatical about, but at the same time, it's a multi-million dollar industry, multi-billion dollar industry. And for all those years up until 2021, the players that the people were coming to see could not make a dime. And if they
Right.
got caught taking one of those bags of money in a Waffle House parking lot, then their whole careers were over. And like Reggie Bush at USC in 2005, he gets his Heisman revoked, he gets his name dragged through the mud. Like all of that was on these players uh, up until it all changed in 2021.
Well, it seems like you can make a real tons of analogies, of course, with what's happening in our country in the last, you know, I don't know, 12 years. I mean, obviously way before that too. I mean, there's not to be naive about it, but you know, yeah, and your books have always had a very strong Arkansas anchor to date, anyway. And although this book is set mainly in Mississippi, this book has an Arkansas anchor too. You've got this rookie federal agent, Rae Johnson, Arkansas girl, who, has really wants to be on some posh detail, on the East Coast, anti-terrorist. I can't remember the acronym, but she's sent to Mississippi to infiltrate this whole world that we'll get into in our discussion here. But And her father, of course, is a coach, football coach. Talk about where Ray comes from in particular. Obviously, that's your hometown,
Yeah.
home state.
Well, I loved what you said there first too about the comparisons that can be made just in our culture. And so, I mean, you could probably point to five different things that have had or more. I really think that's what we've all experienced in, like you said, in like the last 12 years. Like there was this America and this, whether it be college football, whether it be just our view of our country, like we all kind of had this one kind of rose-colored view. And there've been so many things that it's like, be it, there's a lot of reasons for it, but
Sure.
the veil has been lifted. Like we now know for better or worse how the sausage is made.
Totally.
And and what I loved about this book, because where I'm from, college football's, I mean, hell, everything in the world's about to start revolving around college football here. I mean, the first games kick off this Saturday. Um, and everybody I talked to just kept saying, like, man, they've really messed this game up. Man, I wish it was like it then was in the glory days. And so I had a lot of, and we hear a lot of that in other, terms, in different terms right now as well. And so
Sure.
I have a lot of fun um, really peeling back that curtain too and saying like, well, let's really look at this. Like, was this really? And so Ray is the tool that I use to peel that. She is the character through which a lot of that gets driven. And it's really personal for her, like you said, because she wants to be on a JTTF, which is a Joint Terrorism Task Force. And she should. She's first in her class, Quantico. She's a badass. She's a former college pro pole vaulter. But when she gets out, she gets stuck on this white collar crime, which is not what you want to be when you're an FBI agent. Normally, you want to go do the hardcore stuff, especially as a rookie. And the reason is because her dad is a big time college football coach. So they think like, oh, she'll know how to navigate this place, but she really doesn't. In terms of this like this complex social hierarchy of coaches and politicians and gridiron girls and bagmen and all these things that surround this small Southern community, but that has a beating heart of a multi-million-dollar industry annually, that is pumping all the money into it. So that's where this case gets really personal for her, is as these things start to reveal themselves, she starts to wonder, well, wait, like, is this how my dad always did it?
Right.
Like, is this? And where Ray comes from, I've been pointing to three things. You remember the movie, Remember the Titans? You
Yeah.
remember that movie?
Yeah.
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 Remember the daughter? It's Cheryl Yost is the name of the character, and I can never remember how to pronounce the actor's last name, Hayden Pantier.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Exactly.
she's the coach's daughter. She's like 10 or 11 in the film. And she's just so hardcore about like X's and O's, and like she knows the game and she's watching film. And I always loved her as a character. Like when that movie came out, I was probably the same age or close to the same age as her. And I always kind of thought, like, what does she grow up and be? Like, what is she? Because, she's not like, you don't see many women coaches, if any, in the college football realm. So what does she do with all that knowledge? And so for me, one of the most fun things about Ray as a character is kind of her superpower is that she sees the world through the eyes of a coach. And she literally has like this old school trapper keeper that it's formatted just like her dad's old scouting reports. So she's, instead of taking down tendencies or, alignments, she's taking down, locations, leads, and doing all this. So that was a part of it. I have an aunt who was in the FBI, served as a special agent in charge. And Aunt Lily really helped me. I have a few family members that are also in that world. And then the last part was, I think, really for like the pure character of her, like just how she acts. And my wife was a pole vaulter at the University of Arkansas. Um, which I always have always been kind of so mesmerized by, like the idea of pole vaulting in general and like what sort of person it takes to like do what they do,
Your
fly.
wife was a pole vaulter?
Yeah, yeah. She held the
Holy shit.
Arkansas
That's
state
badass.
record up until just like a few years ago, and we're getting close to 40 now. So she's held the Arkansas state pole vaulting record. So it was those three. It was the remember the Titans, it was my aunt and the FBI stuff, and then it was Mallory, and just kind of how she carries herself. So yeah.
That's awesome. Well, the Trapper Keeper, that seemed actually very realistic to me because you, I mean, I remember Trapper Keepers really well, but uh, you hear about a lot of feds and CIA people these days when, technology has just made, it's safer often to resort to old school tradecraft, which is less corruptible and, what I'm trying to say. I'm not articulating myself very well, but I've heard that old analog tradecraft and is making a real comeback.
Yeah, no, I liked that about like her character and showing that. And then, like I said, I mean, technology has changed football as well and how it's scouted. But what I'd say in the book is like back in the day when her dad was like cutting his teeth, the way that they scouted teams was they had to go sit in the stands and they had to take it all down in like 3 and 5 second bursts, like take down the formation, take down. So there was a lot that I saw that was, nowadays everything's on film and on TV and you can go back and you can study it all past after it happened.
Right.
But I loved this idea that like what she learned, like just like that character from Remember the Titans, like, okay, she's not going to be a football coach, but like there's this there is this world where she can use that same skill set to, read people's strengths and weaknesses, read their tendencies, break that stuff down.
Right. And there are some interesting kind of parallels or um, you know, one of the things I really liked about the book was the father and daughter kind of relationship as it plays out with Ray and her father, but also with Eddie Pride and his daughter. They're kind of like the yin and the yang.
Yeah. So I had the most fun. That's again, people have, I was on the road for 15 days doing the tour and it was almost, like obligatory. Like people were gonna stop and be like, "Hey man, I read your first three books. Like this one's really different." And I was ready for that. But I got the question like, why? Like, why did you make this shift? Like to like, because I mean, again, I think this one is to me is most aligned. I mean, I love Elmore Leonard. I love Carl Hyacin. I think it's maybe a mix of those in a way. Like if Carl Hyacin took on like the corruption in college football, but maybe in the style as close as I could get to an Elmore Leonard with that sort of, it's not full on satire like a Hyacin novel, but it has that kind of. And for me, like the why, like I said already, kind of was, it felt right to match the tone of college football, but it was also personal. Um, my first three books, I was like, it was a Larry Brown quote where he said, like I like to get my characters, make them as real as possible, and then give them trouble on the first page, and like just keep turning the heat up, and see how they get out. And that's what I really wanted to do with those first three books. But I don't know, man, as I've gotten older, and into this new whatever mindset, and the world has changed.
Hmm.
It's like I felt like real people had it tough enough already.
Hmm.
Like, and so for me personally, like I wanted to work on something where I could take aim at people that I wished I could take aim at
Hmm.
and then just shoot them down, in the most fun way possible, but also have a lot of fun with them along the way, like which is where Eddie Pride comes into it.
Yeah.
He's a bag man, and his daughter Ella May is a gridiron girl, who that's a real term for basically, this offshoot of a booster club who, when like a high school kid shows up on a recruiting visit, here's one of the ladies from the college,
She's part
who
of the hospitality package with
yeah,
the bag of money.
that's right, so no wonder they're getting a five-star tight end. Um, and yeah, I had so much fun with not only those two, but just so many of kind of the supporting cast of this book to kind of try and paint that whole picture of not just the games and not just, the score, but like what all that complex social realm of this stuff looks like and the money, how the money works. That was a big part of it.
Right. Now, so when you were playing, were your fellow players starting to get a lot of this money? I mean,
Yeah.
were you observing it?
Yeah, man. So like, all right, when I was at Florida Atlantic, I was a redshirt freshman, and I think from best what I can tell, I think the guys who were getting money back then, um, is a lot like it is now, which means that you're in the very top echelon to like be getting that money. So like a redshirt freshman from Arkansas, on the Florida Atlantic roster, like nobody was meeting me in a Waffle House parking lot, or anything like that. And then when I went to Division 2, that's not even in the picture. Like there's not enough money being generated from ticket sales or any to even warrant any of that. And it was really kind of on the border like that at Florida Atlantic. But I do know this, when I was at Florida Atlantic, there were guys on scholarship who, we had like a cat, like a meal ticket or whatever, and we could go to the calf and eat meals. And I remember watching guys like sneak cereal boxes and stuff like out of the calf. And I remember asking, like, what are you doing? Because, like I had parents who were giving me money, outside of my scholarship to go out and eat if I wanted to go out and eat or get groceries. But that for them, for these guys, and again, Florida Atlantic's not the best place to really use this as an example, but imagine at a place like Alabama, where you've got a program that's generating multi-million dollars a year. You've got a kid on scholarship who is having to get food and take it from the cafeteria so that he can have stuff to like eat in his dorm room. And then, so that was happening at FAU. And then I saw at the same time some of our very best players driving like $100,000 vehicles, and having really souped up vehicles, which they might have got all on their own. But cars generally are the easiest thing, because they get a sponsorship, or like the coaches all get a leased vehicle anyway, like already through some dealership, so it's the easiest thing. Like even to this day, most of those players that are right now, they're not having to buy those cars. They're just like, on lease from like the team dealership. So yeah, man, I mean, that was all that.
Well, it's kind of you could draw a comparison with the police force in a way because it's like, what's the line, when you cross over. There's when you accept a free meal or a free cup of coffee, but then there are these men in this football world, as we learn, that I mean, these bagmen aren't doing it from the kindness of their own heart. I mean, it's not just because they want to bolster team spirit. There's a whole economy at work here, an underworld economy, and what they're paying out is chump change compared to what they can be making, right? I mean, I don't want to spoil anything, but
Yeah. Yeah, well, and like in the book, the ultimate bad guy and another character that I had just a ton of fun with is this crooked longtime congressman named Harry Christmas. And Congressman Christmas is is again, what I wanted to do with him was I wanted to show a way, and this is the stuff that like you really can't find in terms of like doing research or finding articles, but I would argue that every big time college football town has got somebody or a group of somebodies like Harry Christmas, and what Harry Christmas in the novel, what he does and what is he is built this entire town all the way from the way he's like I think in the book, the term is like a uniquely Southern take on gentrification, like with the downtown, like to support like the influx of all these fans on Saturdays and the new hotels, and everything is built around, even from how much they charge fans, for beers and how even in the stadium, like all the stadium workers are generally students, and even the college is a 501(c), it's like it's
Hmm.
tax exempt, just like it is a church, which is so perfectly um, ironic because, what we always say in the South is the true religion is Saturday. The true religion is the stadium. Like it, no congregation on Sunday is ever going to compare to the masses that assemble on Saturday.
Well, and then in a deeper level, it's a way of getting back at the Northern aggression that happened back in the 1860s, right? I mean,
And I had a lot of fun with that too, Patrick, through Ray's partner, Frank Ranchino.
yeah, he was a great character.
Man, I'm so glad you liked him because he really is the yin to her yang. She's young, she believes she can tackle it all at once. He's on his last case. He's almost at mandatory retirement age, and he's really just kind of riding this thing out until she comes along. And he's from Brooklyn, so he's got this whole kind of jaded view on the South. Um, and I really liked playing that up. I really liked letting them kind of go at it, this Arkansas girl and this old dog from Brooklyn, kind of go at each other.
So you could obviously couldn't say Ole Miss, or you couldn't, you create a school here
Yeah.
and a town,
Yep.
the town without pity. The yeah. So anyway, what can we get into? The incident that kind of kicks the book off.
Yeah.
This guy Matt Talley, uh, he decides he doesn't want to play ball at the last minute. It's a poor metaphor, but he has a change of plans. He doesn't quite do what he's supposed to do.
Yeah.
Can you? I don't know what you can say, but
Yeah.
it's right
Yeah.
at the beginning of the book. So
Yeah. It's right at the start. It's the second chapter. And I will say, I did an event in Oxford, Mississippi, which is the home of Ole Miss. Um,
was
and
Ace there?
I know Ace wasn't there. Well, it was John T. Edge was the guy that did that with me, but old William Boyle was there. So a lot of the old Oxford guys and Tom Franklin and they came out and it was cool. Um, but no, man, I'll tell you what ended up happening was I really was kind of on eggshells, for a minute. I just I didn't have anything to do with the color scheme on the book, but it definitely is if you know about Ole Miss, that's it, it's that color. And so I really felt like I was sitting there for a minute, and I don't know if anybody kind of was vibing with me. And then John T asked me to read that chapter with Matt Talley, which the setup, and I'll just go ahead and say it is he's supposed to throw this non-conference game. I mean, he's supposed to lose, and he's done everything he can to throw this game. And he's going to get a big payout, and he's going to, but it's the last play of the game, and that's really what the whole chapter takes on. And they still, because they're so good, they've still managed to be hanging into the game where if they score a touchdown, and he sees his childhood hero, he sees Brett Favre in the back corner, and he just can't help it. Like he goes on and he scores this touchdown. And as a result, the rest of the not like things have now turned for or about to take a turn for the worse because he's gone against what he had been paid in order to do. So I read that chapter to the Ole Miss crowd and the Square Books crowd and the Oxford crowd. And man, when I got to that Brett Favre part, like it was a new thing for me because it was the first time where people were laughing, like actually hearing like laughs in a crowd. And from that point on, I think they kind of understood like the tone of this book and that it wasn't, like I wasn't because yeah, it's the University of Central Mississippi. They're the Chiefs. It's in a town called Compson, which I've got my Faulkner, illusions all in there, just for fun, to build on that Mississippi world.
Right. So, okay, so this incident happens, which is kind of hinted at in the our little cartoon here, what happens. Um, and so what can you tell them about the investigation and how Ray kind of proceeds through this?
Yeah, so again, most of the book is this tug of war, especially early on between her and Frank. Frank, it's white collar crime. They're not there to investigate any sort of homicide or anything like that. But Ray is hooked, and she's also, and I love this too about the story because it's such like an athlete thing. Like she's been so trained to win, and win, by whatever means necessary, that she doesn't listen to Frank. For a lot of the book, she goes her own way. She does a lot of stuff that is just with the idea that if she can pull it off, then she's going to get out of white collar crime. She's going to get what she always wanted, which is, a promotion to a JTTF. And so, yeah, I mean, they go round and round, and she, and I love that, as a young writer, and as a player and as a guy who was a football coach at a young age, I was a lot like Ray. I was always plowing ahead, and I still am. So I always love to have like a character like Frank who can say all the things that like people have said to me, like my whole life, like just slow down, and so yeah, I would say that that's a lot of it, but it's again, a lot of it is there's a lot of fun, along the way. I mean, not to give a lot of the plot points away, but a lot of the things they get into and the ways that it builds toward this big showdown in Dallas at the Cotton Bowl, which for non-college football fans is the real name of a bowl game.
Yeah,
And it was played in Dallas at the Cowboys Stadium at Jerry World, and that's where this whole thing comes to a culmination. Um, that was the vehicle I used to get it there.
right. No, it's so much fun. Uh, I was thinking about, when I came into it, I started off by saying that I wasn't aware of a lot of the sort of corruption that had happened with college football. Um, in the past, was a lot of that like, that they weren't allowed to generate an income, the players, they were students of the school, um, and all of that was presumably pushed aside until they would go on to their pro careers where they would really cash in. Are you seeing a lot of this where, hey, someone can make their fortune in college ball and without following that route can cash in and not go on to the pros, or is it still a pro track kind of thing?
Well, I don't know the exact percentage, but it's still, from playing college football to then making the jump to the NFL is still like it's like a 2%, 5 to 2%, of the people who do that
I
can
see.
make it. So that was always the case, And even if you're in that 2 to 5%, you have this 4 to 5 year window where you can actually, like, it's pure capitalism. It's supply and demand. Like Shadur Sanders, Colorado's quarterback last year, made like maybe $6 million. And Arch Manning at Texas this year is making like a little more than that. Those guys are making that because somebody thinks they're worth it. Like somebody's willing to pay. Like it is simple. So the idea that we ever told those guys who had that sort of talent and celebrity to have generated that amount of money that you can't make that money, and if you do, your careers possibly. And the other thing is one blown knee,
Yeah.
one busted like, and all, even if you are in that 2 to 5%, it's over. Um, and yeah, Patrick, like one thing I have been trying to, at least been trying to convince people of is, this book does have a lot of football details. Like it's got a lot of like it goes. I went deep, into that football world, and and I've heard people say, like I'm just not a football person. But a book that I think about is like The Turnout by Megan Abbott, which
Hmm.
is I really love. Um, and I'm not a ballet dude, like I don't know, like, but by the time I finished that book, um, I really enjoyed like being submerged in that world and learning, and Megan does that a lot of the time. I mean, she did that with cheerleading, and Dare Me. Um, so yeah, so I mean, I do think, but football is different, like I think it's like and I'm a weird duck because I was a quarterback who was an English literature major, so
Right.
like it doesn't always make sense to me, but football, like we have a lot of really great novels about baseball and
Mm.
really great novels about boxing. But like,
Hmm.
when it comes to football, there is like this literary aversion, with that you really, I mean,
That's interesting.
North Dallas 40 is a great football novel written by Peter Gent, which was, turned into a movie, but it's a great novel. And
Mm.
Peter played receiver for the Cowboys like back in the 70s and like wrote that, from that. But outside of that, I mean, it's hard to think of. Michael Koryta wrote a really great football novel called The Prophet, a thriller. Um,
You know what's a really good one is Gary Phillips's book, The Juke. Did you ever read that?
Juke, of course, I've got the Juke. Yeah, right over there.
It's a
Yeah,
terrific novel, you know.
yeah, yeah,
I'd like to see I would like to, Juliet, if you're listening, bring the Juke back to Soho because
yeah,
it's such I mean he pitched perfect. I remember when that book came out.
yeah, yeah,
But his character also you played in Europe briefly, didn't you?
yeah. Sweden.
Yeah, what was that like?
Oh, it was a blast. We
Were you married yet?
No. So we did really well, and because of that, I got a chance to like sign another contract and I was signed up to play with a team in the French Riviera, the Cannes Iron Mask. And I was home for like three
It's a
months.
rough gig.
Oh, dude. So I came home for 3 months, and in that time, I had this really long hair, like past my shoulders. And when I came home, I cut it off, got like a regular haircut, and I put a picture on Facebook. And this girl that I had gone to school with and that I had seen when I was practicing football doing all this pole vaulting, she liked the picture. So I sent her a Facebook message. We end up going to a date at Ruby Tuesdays. And then, like 2 months later, I end up breaking this contract with the French team. And she tells me, she's like, "Well, Eli, you've gotten a real haircut. Now it's time to get a real job." And the only real job that I could get was being a high school football coach because I didn't even have like a teaching degree or anything. I had to backdoor my way in. And that's how all like the whole trajectory of everything happened.
Wow. And that's where, of course, don't know tough.
Yeah.
It's really
Yeah.
that whole
Yeah.
experience.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, what else can we talk about with the book that we haven't gotten into that I don't know. I mean, the comparisons as the deeper resonance between, this whole football world and modern culture. I mean, it's deep.
Okay, yeah, man. I'm really hoping for that. I'm hoping to show that. And then the thing, we sold this as a two-book deal, and so I've been working on the sequel, which there's hopes of a series, and it's going to be set in this Wild West era of where the players are getting paid. And that's also been really fun. You do one that's kind of the moment when the veil gets lifted, and how does that feel? And then you do one where the veil is lifted and there are no rules and everything's on the table and everybody knows everything. And how do you play the game? Like how do you play the game when there are no rules? When it's just pure dog eat dog, and how does that change? So and that's really for me, that's if readers can read these two books, as get some knowledge about college football, about because it's a uniquely American game. And I mean like uniquely in the definition that there is nothing else like it, like college football
The players are at that perfect
anywhere in
moment.
the world. This idea that it's, yeah, Well, and it's the idea that there's this like that it's supposed to be amateur, like that it's this amateur or was supposed to be. So it's a very cool and perfect vehicle to talk about America, to
Mm,
talk about what makes us and what this kind of this same trick that we've always pulled over and over again of, the rich getting richer and how they do that.
mm,
How do they actually pull that off?
right. It's a very warlike game, you know.
It's absolutely. I
I love
mean,
George Carlin. Have you ever heard his riff where he compares baseball and football?
uh-uh.
George Carlin. Oh, look it up. It's classic, man.
Okay.
Talking about he advances down the field with long bombs and making the comparison with the
Yeah.
military. Yeah. But
No.
so much also has been revealed about, concussions and all of that stuff. Was there much awareness of that when you were playing, or did that come afterwards?
When I was playing, no. I mean, we knew what a concussion was. And maybe by the time I got into college, I'm of this weird generation where like I grew up like completely in like the other time period. So what I mean by that was like my whole childhood was like no cell phones, no social media. Like we had dial-up internet. Um, and like MySpace came into existence like my freshman year in college. So like my whole youth and like nobody had a smartphone, by then. Like we had like flip phones and like
Uh,
pay phones, but like so I really had this youth that was like a lot of other, people older than me, they're youth. But then my college, like, and I feel like the football was kind of like that too. Like I started playing tackle football when I was in second grade, and we did all the drills that are outlawed now. We did all the, as second graders, as 8 and 9 year olds, and then growing up, like you get your bell rung is what they would call it, and if you could walk straight, you'd go back, like even through high school. By college, it's kind of like, oh, we start to understand. We had concussion protocol. We had, some of that stuff. But yeah, man, I don't know. I mean, it's something I think about. I wrote a series of football themed essays for the Oxford American years ago, probably like 5 years ago, before any of the books came out. And I wrote one called Heart. And I remember this line because my dad was having heart surgery, and I was writing about his heart and like genetics, like what you can get. But then I started talking about my head, and I remember saying like, will it come on like a backside blitz? Like LT snapping poor Joe's leg? Or is it a darkening, like a migraine, no amount of ibuprofen will ever fix, like, and I just was really, but I don't know. I mean, I feel fine now, so.
did you get a bunch of concussions that you're aware of, or
I'm sure I did. I mean, because I was a pretty hard-nosed guy. And I do know like I saw stars and was, like had to come back and yeah, I think probably, but never did like any of the stuff they do now. Like
yeah.
so
It's weird, watching a pro game anyway on TV. I was amazed at how it's resembling a video game more and more,
yeah,
with all this like swarm of little drones kind of cruising in and out and capturing all the footage. It was bizarre,
yeah. I know. That's been one really, really fun thing about this next book and jumping into this kind of space age um, world of all that and and yeah, how in some ways the game has progressed so far, and then in the others you're like, well, is has it? But again, I think that says a lot about us and about America,
for sure.
what our values are.
Right. Now, are you still teaching writing at all?
I do. So I have this great gig where the writer in residence at our local university, Arkansas Tech. I teach like this semester, I'm teaching intro to creative writing and intro to fiction. And then last year I was, because the book came out in like June, everything was done and I was able to like get in and really help with the football team, which was a blast. Like I got to actually like go out on the field and help with a little bit with the quarterbacks and be on the sideline during games, which was fun because I was also finishing up the draft of Mississippi Blue 42. This year, like I said, I've been gone like the last 15 days, and that's when they started their camp and all that stuff. So I haven't had a chance to get out there as much, but I hope to, because I love the idea of the writer in residence being also like a volunteer football coach.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. I'm so glad you mentioned the title because tell me about it. I mean, it's the title comes from a play and a football play. Is that what you would call it?
Yeah, yeah,
And unfortunately, I guess the finished copy has the hieroglyphics of do you have any of that you could show us?
yeah. And I do, I love the title. Blue 42 was always like, yeah, it's just kind of like, I don't know that we ever really said it in a real game, but you always kind of hear it, like like blue 42 down set, maybe like an audible call, and then I just love the meter of like Mississippi Blue 42. Like it's almost like iambic pentameter, like stressed,
Yeah.
unstressed, stressed, unstressed. And then yeah, like right before it was all going to print, I got an email from Soho and they were like, "Hey, we can do in paper, and we're thinking maybe we do like some sort of football stuff." And I was like, well, I think I could draw it. So we did all of this. I don't know how it'll come through, but I got to just
Oh,
like
wow.
break out the old like and I even there's if you see on there, there's like a like I drew a play that kind of looked like Blue 42, but um so yeah, I'm hoping that if we continue for the series that they'll let me scheme up, some more plays, because I always like to think maybe that's what Ray's like doodling, like inner trapper keeper.
Can you explain how one of those plays works? Like,
Really?
yeah, maybe on the board behind you, you could draw
Draw
one
one
up
up?
for us.
Are you serious?
Sure, why not? It'd be fun.
Okay. Let's see what I can do here. All right. Can you see all the way over
Yeah,
here?
yeah, it looks great.
Now we're going back to the coaching
You're not
days.
going to get this at Barnes and Noble. Come on.
That's right. Okay. So you can see my circles?
Yep, yep.
Okay. So I'll do like a regular like inside zone maybe. Okay, so this is offense with the O's. Defense is here that I'm drawing up with like these letters.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yep.
Okay, and so what this would be is like an inside zone. So my light kind of on it.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Good.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's good.
Inside zone is a run play, but this is like the new thing that everybody is doing now, and it's called a run pass option. Have you heard of run pass option?
No.
So what it is there's a pass out here, like a little hitch screen. Can you see that?
Yeah, yep.
What it means is like this guy blocks this guy blocks this guy, and you throw the ball over here to this receiver, and then he
Okay.
runs like a little screen. And so the way you do that is all judging by pre-snap numbers. So like if you have right now, he's got two guys over three guys, like 2 for 2. So that's pretty good. Then the other numbers you come in, and so if you've got that, just throw the ball over here and he can catch it. And the idea is that he could run because you've got a blocker for each guy. But let's say they move like this linebacker a little bit farther out here. So now you only have you've kind of got 1, 2, 3 for your two blockers. So now you have a numbers advantage in here. And so what you want to do is this, they're blocking here up to him. You've got great numbers in here, and you read this defensive end. So the quarterback can put the ball in the gut of the running back as he takes off. If this guy crashes down, the quarterback can keep it and run, or better in this case with this box, just hand it off, and you've got one lineman for every defender in the thing. So that's a new, it's called a run pass option. It's like you call it at the line and they can already go. Over here, this guy could run like a slant, or he could even run a fade. And if we like this matchup, it's just one-on-one, then as soon as he caught the ball, he could just throw it because the rules, they can't be more than 4 yards downfield. The line, you can still pass even on a run play as long as your linemen aren't more than 4 yards downfield when you get it. So that might
And
be
that's
more
what
than you want to
that's what
know.
happens in the play in the book, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, there's a run pass option in the book for sure.
Yeah.
So
That
yeah.
that's awesome, man. Thanks for explaining that.
Yeah, well, thanks for asking. I haven't done that
Yeah.
at any of
Yeah.
the
Well, that's what's interesting about, once you get into the book, if you're a football agnostic like myself, you learn this sort of, I'm always fascinated by the secret lore and society, of different, like you were mentioning with Megan and ballet. She takes you inside the real inner workings. That's fascinating stuff.
Yeah, it was some of my favorite parts to write. Like there's a pregame meal scene, and pregame meals were always so weird. Like we always ate the same food. Like it was always like grilled chicken and green beans and like a mashed potato. Always like even if we were on the road, it was like like a superstition. And
Huh.
then the guys are nervous, and you have all these other superstitions about like what music you listen to and all. I mean, so there's one of my favorite scenes to write was just there's this halftime section in the game where Moses McLeod, who becomes the quarterback, he's kind of getting all like it's a really in-depth scene about, and he even says, like all that stuff, it's like a full speed calculus equation. And if you don't solve for X, you could get speared in the kidney, by the end of it. So yeah, I do. I mean, that's what I'm always hoping to show, but is what this game really is, because it's not just jugheads running into each other. I mean, there's a whole world around it.
Yeah, and I'm glad before we sign off, I'm glad you mentioned Moses McLeod because you talk in the book about segregation in Mississippi, like right up to the present day in many ways. Anything you'd like to discuss? Right? I mean, it's in the book, but
Sure. I mean, that was a Moses was a he was a I felt like I needed to make Moses like who he was and what he was. He's from Clarksdale. He's a black guy, a black kid, which brings its whole own thing to like the quarterback position. Like we have this whole kind of Tom Brady all the way back, Joe Namath, like whoever, that when you think of like quarterbacks, like pocket. And then you've got these athletic dual threat guys. And if you're an athletic dual threat white guy, they say different things about you than if you're an athletic dual threat black guy. So like there's a little bit
mm,
of that in the book. But at the same time, I really just wanted to show like that world because a lot outside of the locker room, a lot of all the other parts of the coaches, the money people, the boosters, the other students, like outside of the locker room, so many of those people orbiting this world that are profit are white people, like that at these southern, massive southern colleges. So I don't know, man. I'm always looking for that gray area, when I write the book and I'm looking for the way that it turns it up the most. And so Moses was absolutely a character that I really felt like had a lot of the heart of the book and was also he's a really smart kid that is also very gifted. And by the end of the book, um, I mean the way that what he does for the end of the book is probably one of my favorite things. It's really the whole I can't say about it, but it's really where the whole idea of the book came from, was what he does at the end.
Wow. And Ella May Pride is in his hospitality package too,
Well, she actually
early
wasn't.
on.
So he had what he describes as a pre-assigned female companion of color. That's what he said.
Right.
And then Ella May um, nudges her out of the way on the dance floor at the club and kind of moves herself into this position. And yeah, so for those listening who haven't read the book, like you can see how complicated and soap opera like a college football world can get, really quickly.
Was Eddie it's Eddie Pride, right? Yeah. Was Pride kind of a little nod to Charlie Pride?
Maybe, yeah, maybe a little not. And also, I mean, I've thought back on that. I mean, I keep this list, Patrick, of names in my phone. And I'll read you a few of these just because it was just when I come across them, like, and being a teacher and a coach, it was like the best thing ever because you got a new roster every year, a new, but Alpha Jones, Omega Blake. I think both of those are current players right now on the University of Arkansas Razorbacks football team. Alpha Jones, Omega Blake, Nuppy Puckett, Peaches Calhoun, Yancey, Pork Chop Palmer, Squirrel, Nate Tinbarge, Kaler, William Earl Williams, Rush, Smurf Darrow, Kennedy Corona, Wheezy, Butler Benson, Boots Radsaw, Radford. I mean, like these are just names I see on a billboard or see, and I can't remember where Eddie Pride Jr. actually came from, but I really just, and then when I compared it with Ella May, Eddie Pride Jr. and Ella May Pride, like I just thought, ooh,
That sounds good.
Bagman and our Gridiron Girl.
Yeah, I like how a lot of the old blues names, you know,
Yeah.
uh, the ones from Georgia were especially inspired, like Barbecue Bob and
Mm,
Peg Leg Howl,
yeah.
people like that. I just love that stuff.
That was one thing I didn't get to say, man, that I do want to say, because that was a question they asked me in Mississippi, like, why the hell did you set this book in Mississippi? And I said, my joke at the start was like, I took on chicken processing in Arkansas with the previous book, but I wasn't about to take on our one university, even
Yeah.
a fictionalized version of it. So that was the joke. But I think the truth um, is I was born in Forest City, Arkansas, which is about 30 miles west of Memphis and right 30 miles west of like the Mississippi line. And it's in a region geographically, culturally called the Mississippi Delta. Like all that
Hmm.
area of Arkansas, it's Levon Helm is from right there, drummer and singer of the band. So
Sure.
many great blues musicians. Um, I was born there, lived there till I was 5, where all my parents are from. And like we moved away and moved up into the Ozarks where I live now, but we would go back there every Christmas, every holiday. And that place geographically and culturally has so much more in common with Mississippi than where I am in Arkansas. And so what I ended up was like, you always hear people say, write what you know, but I always say, write what you love, because I had such a love for that Mississippi, like, and write what you're curious about. And I had a lot of fun with that. And that was, that's been one of the most cool things is hearing, because anytime you take a chance and I mean, hell, I hope every book I write doesn't always have to be set in Arkansas, for it to work. But when you do take a
Hmm.
chance like that, then it's always cool to hear, when you get it right.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Eli, it's been a real treat talking with you as always. One of
Always.
these days, we're gonna have to get you out here to the desert.
Yeah. When it's not 150 degrees.
I'm getting a notification that we have like a big storm rolling in, so maybe we'll actually get a monsoon storm this year, which would be nice.
Cool
Um,
it down.
yeah. But anyway, always great to see you, man. And thanks everybody for tuning in. We should have signed copies of Mississippi Blue 42 coming in really soon, but I don't think we have that many left. So if you want to go ahead and place your order now before they sell out.
Sounds
But
good.
we'll talk to you soon, Eli. Have a great night,